Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to White Robes family. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I'm compelled to present before an awakening nation. This is the 72nd installment of White Robes family series. There are various other playlists with different titles that are also part of the White Robes publication, and they each have their own numeric system. My name is Symmanayah, and the words I speak are to those who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Father. In this 72nd installment, I want to bring your attention to why it's important to make known. Make known the things that are set apart. Make known the instructions that the Spirit of the Almighty Father is given to us during these trying times. Make known the instructions. I will present a case, my brothers and sisters, where I believe it is important for us to know what it means to try the Spirit, to examine the Spirit, why it's important to vet and examine ourselves and one another. Yashar'al, the color scheme you see here is relative to the feast time of the trumpets. Now, I'm not saying that that time is here. I'm just saying that there's a purpose in the feast times, and I explain it in other videos. As for the trumpets, it's a time, the purpose I believe that the Most High wants us to always be mindful of is that during the scheduled journey in this life, there are times to make known, to sound the shofar, to speak out, to confirm and reaffirm the ways of the Almighty Father. And there's a time to declare judgment. And we are witnessing a season where judgment will be magnified. We are witnessing a season where we will find it critical to make known what the Spirit of Yahuah is saying to us individually and collectively. Before I get into this segment in more detail, let me read the disclaimer. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Robes family represent instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashyach, referencing John 6:44. The content presented centers around end-time realities. Please be advised, this site is not intended for children under 16 years of age to be compliant with various media platforms. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence and or actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and or viewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners, management, and or shareholders of this media platform. Please note I am not affiliated with anyone or organization with similar names. With that said, my brothers and sisters, make known COVID-19 is still spreading, as with other diseases and plagues across the planet. Sicknesses are ramping up and deaths are enlarging. There will be many times, my brothers and sisters, where we will not be able to be with a loved one. We will not be able to go and attend a funeral. We will not be able to mourn. You see, for such a time as this, we must prepare to sharpen our eyes and our ears, to open our minds to the presence of the Spirit of Yahuah, sent in Yahusha's name to guide us, to teach us, and to comfort us. It is my position, as things are made known, as we make known the ways, the living orders, the instructions from the Almighty Father, it will bring some pain, some regret. It will bring some joy and rejoicing. It will bring comfort. It will bring some tough decisions ahead. Let me read the following, my brothers and sisters. Come with me. In Leviticus 23rd chapter, it speaks of the feast times. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Yashar'al, saying, in the 7th new moon, on the 1st day of the new moon, you have a rest, a remembrance of Teruah, which is trumpets, a set apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. How many people are aware that offerings made by fire symbolizes Yahuwah? Yahuwah is a consuming fire, as the scriptures tell us. Offering made by fire, his stirring within us, presenting our offering, remembrance of the trumpets. You see, my brothers and sisters, there were many times when Yashar'al played the shofar and announced their existence, whether it be in battle or whether it be in proclaiming judgment, or whether it be times of rejoicing. We can look at the Feast of Trumpets, measure the time that it's supposed to be, but how many of us realize, how many of us are aware what is actually happening, my brothers and sisters? How many trumpets? When we hear the shofar, what comes to mind? Does it usher in instructions from the Almighty Father as he used his preachers, teachers, mores, pastors, and bishops, those whom he has selected? Trumpet. Does it represent this pleasant sound to get the attention, get our attention, to focus on the Almighty Father? Does it represent the sound that judgment is about to take place? Does it represent times of proclamation? You see, my brothers and sisters, a trumpet, a shofar, produces a sound that gets our attention. And once it gets our attention, our eyes are moved. For such a time as end times, whether it be plagues and disease, whether it be protests and riots, whether it be civil unrest in other ways, shape, and form, whether it be earthquakes in diverse places or storms or meteor showers, the shofar is to get our attention, and it demands that we respond. Come with me, my brothers and sisters, for I believe the Feast of Trumpet is to be recognized, that there's a purpose for us to realize that we have been given ears to hear, eyes to see, a spirit to discern, to enlarge our belief in serving the Almighty Father. Come with me, O Yashar'al, into this message, make known. Make known is linked to the Feast of Trumpets because it is a time for us to recognize who is trying to get us our attention and for what purpose. Consider Leviticus 23, verse 23 through 25. When he speaks of the trumpets, do not our ears are there to hear, to recognize? Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, it seems like I'm having some technical difficulties. Okay, I believe I got it straight, my brothers and sisters. Thank you for your patience. End times will prove that we will see, hear, and discern much, for there is much work ahead of us, O Yashar'al. Consider Revelation chapter 2, verse 7. It says, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To him who overcomes, I shall give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of the Almighty One. An ear, let him hear. My brothers and sisters, we have ears, not just to hear the noise from one another, not just to hear the noise that goes across our face, but ears to hear what the Spirit of Yahuah has to say to us, through us, one towards another. Hearing is important. Revelation 3:18 says, I advise you to buy from me gold refined in the fire, so that you become rich, and white garments, so that you become dressed, so that the shame of your nakedness might not be shown, and anoint your eyes with ointment so that you see. My brothers and sisters, refined in the fire of the Almighty Father, his actions, his Spirit working in us, white garments indicating that we are walking in set apartness, walking in obedience, dressed by the blood of the Lamb. Our garments are washed by the blood of the Lamb. If you doubt this, visit Revelation 7 chapter, and you will see where it says white garments washed in the blood of the Lamb. My brothers and sisters, it says, anoint your eyes with ointment so that you see. That ointment is the precious oil of the Almighty Father upon us, stirring our spirits, quickening us to do what must be done. Philippians 1:9-11, something I've shared before. This I pray you, that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment. Discernment is the ability to see, to hear, to recognize what the Spirit of Yahushua is saying. It said for you to examine the matters that differ, in order to be sincere and not stumbling into the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahushua Messiah, to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, how many of us are aware of what's occurring? How many of us are aware of the things we must do? I said I was asked this question very frequently, my brothers and sisters. And that is, are you satisfied with your leader, your moray, your teacher, your bishop? Are they equipping you with the instructions that you need in order to press forward during these intense times, during these end times? Are they? Do you believe it's wise to continue to be under the leadership of someone that's not feeding your spirit? Do you honestly believe it's wise to continue? If you look at your leader, your moray, teacher, your community head, are they showing you how to walk in set apartness so that you're able to see, hear, and discern and know what to do in the event of their demise? Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, you may be tired of me asking these questions, but as end times ramp up, as protests and riots increase, as time become intense and challenging, as foreclosures or evictions approach, as famine, pestilence, and disease magnify, can you say that your leader is teaching you demonstrating how to serve others and how to direct others, how to discern the voice of the Spirit of Yahusha? Are your leaders proclaiming set-apart words as they come from brothers and sisters and say, hey, I bear witness to that. That is the Spirit of Yahusha working in you. I bear witness to him using you as well as he's using me. Are they demonstrating how we can identify when we're subjecting ourselves one towards another? Are they identifying how we must be able to do that? Are they equipping you with the questions to ask, the skill sets to examine, to vet, to determine whether it is the Spirit of Yahuah? Are they providing scriptural teachings that speak on keeping the scriptures whole from Genesis to Revelation? Or have they sliced out parts of the scripture and say, oh, that shouldn't be there. Oh, the New Testament don't count. Or the New Testament count, but Paul is letters, the rest is something else. My brothers and sisters, over the years, language has spread in many different ways, shapes, and forms. Whether you read Genesis or whether you read Corinthians, these are messages. These are instructions given by the Almighty Father for us to learn, to grow stronger in our worship and obedience to him. It is man who would rather say, well, Paul was letters and Genesis was Torah. What is Torah? Torah is instructions, my brothers and sisters. It is the instructions from the Almighty Father. We have the written instructions and we have the living instructions. We have his Spirit making alive the written. But if you look at any one of the so-called Pauline letters, or the letters, such as Corinthians, Ephesians, Galatians, what are they but texts? But made alive, they're made alive. Just as Genesis is made alive. They bring about instruction, teachings. Some will say that they are just for, one is for doctrinal, and the other isn't. Doctrinal means teaching. Can we learn from the books of the so-called Old Testament? There are teachings. Can we learn from the books in the so-called New Testament, including what many would rather just argue and talk about, that they are letters? Here, O Yashar'al, it's time to face the realities of preparation for focusing and discerning and recognizing. It's time to make known what we see as we weigh it against the scriptures in whole. Not taking one passage of scripture or another, but asking with patience and with a sincere mind that the Spirit of Yahusha will bring to mind, bring to remembrance all that supports what we see, what we must make known. Focusing is going to be critical as things fall apart around us, as widespread destruction come before us. Yashar'al, let me continue. I want to bring your attention to Deuteronomy, 4th chapter, 9th verse. Here we read and we learn what the Almighty Father desires us to know. There's the literal and there's the spiritual. There's the literal that went directly to those who was presented with these instructions by Mashyach, and there's the spiritual that lets us know that even though this went initially to the group Mashyach was speaking to, it also applies to us. It says, only guard yourself and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, and lest they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life. And you shall make them known to your children and your grandchildren. Make it known to children and grandchildren. And in guarding ourselves, my brothers and sisters, we must make known to those who are around us how we guard ourselves, how we guard our lives diligently. We must be able to pass that on one to another and to our children. I say again, there's more purpose in the Feast of Trumpets than many speak of. without ears to hear, how then can the noise of the trumpet affect us? Maybe we may feel the vibrations. And when it gets our attention, do you think the Most High wants to get our attention just to be getting our attention? I assure you there are tasks during these end times. Isaiah 12, chapter, verse 4. And in that day you shall say, praise Yahuah, call upon his name. Make known his deeds among the peoples. Make mention that his name is exalted. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. There are so many people that would say, well, I'm normally quiet. I don't talk much. We have an obligation, O Yashar'al, an obligation to proclaim the things that are brought before us, to speak to one another, to speak amongst those who are of the set-apart nation of Yashar'al, to demonstrate to those who are outside, so that our good deeds are not ill spoken of, to be as a lamp to the world. Consider these connections to the Feast of Trumpets. Welcome sounds. Proverbs 20:27 say, the spirit of a man is the lamp of Yahuah, searching all his inmost parts. A lamp, my brothers and sisters. We hear the call from the Almighty Father. He gets our attention. And what is it that you think he desires? For us to be as a lamp. And to be as a lamp, searching our inmost parts, allow us to yield to him cleaning our house, so that that lamp does not dim, so that that light is bright. Studying, proclaiming, making known the ways of the Almighty Father. Luke 11:33 and 34 says, and no one, when he has lit a lamp, puts it in a hidden place or under basket, but on a lampstand, that those who come in shall see the light. The lamp of the body is the eye. Therefore, when your eye is good, all your body also is enlightened. But when your eye is evil, your body also is darkened. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. It is important for us to understand the dynamics of why things must be made known. For as people cry out, as end times get intense, there will be the mothers, the sons, the daughters, the fathers. There will be weeping beyond what we're seeing today due to the widespread injustices. But the Most High wants to get our attention. For judgment has begun. Living instructions are going forward. Preparations for that final exodus are going forward. Actions to bring us together in unity have begun. Consider Matthew 22:29. It says, and Yahusha answered said to him, you go astray, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of the Almighty One. I say to you, O Yashar'al, there are many people that would say, show me the scripts, show me the scripts. And they'll say it believing that if they just see the text, that's enough. I say to you, Yashar'al, just reading the scriptures without knowing the power of the Almighty One leaves one void of listening to what his Spirit is saying. Let us make known what his Spirit is saying, so that the words we speak can be examined, tried, and put to the test. For if they are indeed set apart, they will function with life in them. If our words are mere noise to entertain, to consume a minute, an hour, or hours, then something is wrong. Yashar'al, hear these words. Let us not just read the scriptures, but let us discern the power of the Almighty One, making them alive in us, through us. Consider John 14:11 through 14. It says, believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me. Otherwise, believe me because of the works themselves. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he shall do also. And greater works than these he shall do, because I go to my Father. And whatever you ask in my name, that I shall do, in order that the Father might be esteemed in the Son. If you ask whatever in my name, I shall do it. There are some people who believe that just by asking in Yahusha's name, he's going to do it. And they'll say, see, that's what the scripture said. My brothers and sisters, the scriptures tell us to walk being filled with the Spirit. The scriptures tell us to be focused on the Almighty Father. For worshiping and obeying him, seeking to discern his living guidance, my brothers and sisters, will lead us to ask things that are consistent with his ways, things that he desires us to ask. It's not about just asking whatever we feel like it for no reason at all, or fabricating a reason that does not benefit the body of Yashar'al. How many among us is aware of 1 John 5:14 and say, and this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. We must know the desire of the Almighty Father, my brothers and sisters. By studying, by praying, by vetting, by testing, by examining one another, by proving all things, by making known what we believe we are instructed to do. My brothers and sisters, discover the details connected to trumpets. Yeah, you say, it's been redundant. Take a moment. If you heard a shofar, someone blowing a shofar, if you stepped out your house, apartment, if you woke up in the streets and you heard someone blowing the shofar, what would be your reaction? Again, I believe the Feast of Trumpets, we are instructed to pass these down from generation to generation. The Feast of Trumpets is to teach us to be walking with a ready mind. So when we hear the shofar, our attention should be to look towards what the Most High Father is saying to us. Is judgment being proclaimed? Are there living instructions and orders going forward? Is it a time of rejoicing? I believe he wanted us and desires us to always walk with a ready mind, to hear and know that there should be some response when he gets our attention. And as end times become intense, my brothers and sisters, he will get our attention and we will hear. We will grow to hear, my brothers and sisters. Let's yield to the call. Listen and hear. Consider these words. So then, do not be foolish, but understand what the desire of Yahuah is. And do not be drunk with wine, in which is loose behavior, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to each other in psalms and songs of praise and spiritual songs, singing and striking the strings in your heart to the Master, giving thanks always for all to the Almighty One, the Father, in the name of our Master, Yahusha Messiah, subjecting yourselves to each other in the fear of Yahuah, in the fear of the Almighty One. We will hear, my brothers and sisters. In the midst of all the noise, our ears will begin to get sharpened to where we can identify set-apart instructions, set-apart orders. And lifting up Yahusha Mashyach, my brothers and sisters, and yielding to his Spirit working in us and through us, we will learn to listen and hear. We will learn how to respond. What do you hear today? What sounds do you hear? What is your response? Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, it's very important to know what is expected during the time of trumpets. And what I'm saying is during the sound of the shofar. There's a spiritual sound echoing right now saying, prepare ye for the way of those who are being gathered together. There's a sound going forward loud in spirit for us to walk in set apartness with the intensity to be fitly joined together. There's an echo of the shofar going before us, my brothers and sisters. Look around. Listen to the cries that are crying, Abba Yahuah, save me. Direct my footsteps. There's a sound, O Yashar'al. Spiritually, the shofar is echoing. The trumpets are echoing. We must learn to discern and recognize and make known what words are being said by the Almighty Father to us one towards another. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, in the midst of all the noise, in the midst of the things we hear, consider these words. Matthew 28:18-20 says, and Yahusha came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Therefore go and make taught ones of all the nations, immersing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the set apart Spirit, teaching them to guard all that I have commanded you. And see, I am with you always until the end of age. Amen. My brothers and sisters, making known, teaching. And when he talked about immersing, my brothers and sisters, when he talks about immersing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, my brothers and sisters, if you were to go back, well, not go back, go forward and read in Acts, you will find, my brothers and sisters, that not one person was immersed in the name of the Father, the Son, and the set apart Spirit. If you study the scriptures, if you study Matthew before we get to this point, the 28th chapter, you will see that Yahusha and Yahuah are one. If you study the scriptures, you will see when they asked him to show us the Father, and he said, have I not been with you? Yahusha was speaking of himself when they say in the name of the Father, the Son, and the set apart Spirit. He was speaking of himself, O Yashar'al. Do you doubt these words? Find me. I invite you. I challenge any one of you to find me the passage where anyone was immersed in the name of the Father, the Son, and the set apart Spirit. You see, if you are one of those that just looking at the text, then you would find yourself in a position where you say, well, where are the people that were immersed in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit? Where? He told them to do that, so none of them obeyed. Not so, O Yashar'al. They obeyed. When you look at the scriptures and you see them immersing, they immersed in Yahusha's name. So if you ask the question to the Almighty Father, if you were to inquire and say, how can the scriptures, Matthew 28:19 and Acts 2:38, which reads, and Kepha said to them, repent and let each one of you be immersed in the name of Yahusha Messiah for the forgiveness of sin, and you shall receive the gift of the set apart Spirit. How can these connect and be whole? They can if you're able to receive that Yahusha was the embodiment of the Father, the Son, and the set-apart Spirit. He was Yahuwah's word manifest in the flesh. He was the Son as he walked among us. He was the set-apart Spirit and is the set-apart Spirit, as it is mentioned that the Almighty Father sent his set-apart Spirit in Yahusha's name, as it is written in the Scriptures. So many people look over that, my brothers and sisters. Yes, you hear me mention it often. John 14:26, but the Helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you of all that I've said to you. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, as end times ramp up. In the midst of the noise and in the midst of false teachings, we will learn to discern what is true, what is real, how to connect the Scriptures and keep them whole, as we are guided by him who gives us life everlasting. Romans 10:13-15, I want to read that one as well. For everyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. How then shall they call on him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming? I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, the noise of set-apartness is as a trumpet. The noise of set-apart instructions is as the echoing of a shofar. You can be single-minded and think it's just a sound and vibration of music. Or you can step beyond that and realize that the sounds of set-apartness stirs our spirit to worship and obey the things that the Almighty Father will have us to do. As we worship him, we will identify his tasks, his assignments. It say, how shall they proclaim if they are not sent? As it has been written, how pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news of peace, who bring the good news of good. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, there is strength in responding to the set-apart noise that is the noise of instructions that are the echoes of life. They will take us beyond false teachings. They'll take us beyond unfruitful sounds. My brothers and sisters, as end times get intense, it's going to be important for us to recognize the power, to be mindful of the power in the midst of proclamations, in the midst of the sound. For in the power of Yahuwah will come proof of who he is using as leaders and whom he has chosen together from the four corners of the earth, and whom he will direct to be martyrs for Yahusha's name. Choose our side wisely. Choose your side wisely. I want you to visit number 16 chapter regarding rebellion against the Most High Yahuah's leadership. I'll tell you about it briefly. It was a time when Dathan, Abiram, and Korah questioned the leadership of Yahuah. And when Mashyach went before the Almighty Father and went before the assembly, he gave them an opportunity to choose what side. And those who chose the side of Dathan, Korah, and Abiram, we see witness of a sinkhole that opened up and swallowed the rebellious against the Most High. If you search the Scriptures, there are a lot of things that have been cyclical. In other words, we saw repeats of. Could not the Scriptures in Matthew 24th chapter, when it speaks of earthquakes, will we not see times where the ground will open and swallow people? My brothers and sisters, widespread destruction is coming. For the Almighty Father has promised discipline, vengeance, and wrath. And we know he reigns on the just and unjust. So there will be those who will face destruction in the midst of earthquakes and sinkholes. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. It's about choosing where to be and with whom and at what time. I want you to also be mindful of Acts 5th chapter, verse 1-11, regarding Ananias and Sapphira, how they lost their lives because of deceit. Lying and deceit led to their demise. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, end times are here. I can't stress it enough. The importance of making known what is set apart. The importance of speaking, Yashar'al, to one another with strength and power. To make known what the Father is saying to us. My brothers and sisters, identify set apart times to proclaim times of action, time to move. See, there's going to be time to be still, and there's going to be time of movement. There will be intermittent movement as the 144,000 great multitude begin to take shape, begin to enlarge, and become visible before our very eyes. Each of us are experiencing a stirring, some greater than others. It's time to identify that stirring within us. It's time to make known what we are experiencing to one another. It's time to yield to correctness if we are being influenced by our flesh as a result of conditioning and programming and psychological and mental warfare. We must examine so that we can see what is set apart versus what is not, so that we can proclaim how the Spirit of Yahuah is working in us and through us. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, do not be afraid. We will stumble, we'll fall at times, but it is through the atoning blood of Yahusha Mashyach that we ask and can ask and seek forgiveness and yield to reproof and rise up renewed. So step into it, O Yashar'al. Rise up, gird up, make known what challenges that are before you, and make known what you believe you should do or not do. And let it be examined before the body of Yashar'al. Let us prove all things. It is written, my brothers and sisters, 2 Timothy 4:2 instructs us to proclaim the word, be urgent in season, out of season, convict, warn, appeal with all patience and teachings. My brothers and sisters, what are you proclaiming? What are you making known? 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18 say, rejoice always, pray without ceasing. In all circumstances give thanks, for this is the desire of the Almighty One and Messiah Yahusha for you. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, pray without ceasing. How many among us believe that pray without ceasing is communicating with the Almighty Father? That means speaking and listening. And in our listening, my brothers and sisters, listening for the shofar, listening for the sounds of life from the Almighty Father, can we identify him coming from a brother, a sister? Can we identify him coming to us directly in spirit? You see, pray without ceasing requires us to recognize the importance of communication, my brothers and sisters. What say you, O Yashar'al? What is your position? The Feast of Trumpets. Time to proclaim. Could proclaiming be as one watering the garden? We know that the water of Yahuah is his word. And when we speak the set apart words from the Almighty Father, and I'm not talking about just quoting scriptures, my brothers and sisters. I'm talking about as we speak to one another in conversation and demonstrations of love. Are we doing the things that are necessary for binding us together? Think about the things that a husband would say to his wife, or wife to the husband, trying to get to know one another, trying to get closer to one another, trying to grow as one. Should we not, as servants of the Almighty Father, seeking to walk in obedience to his word, knowing that Yahusha himself is the husbandman, should we not get to know one another, get to know him? And I say to you, it's time to ask questions. It's time to get to know one another more readily, more closely. It's time to clearly see the purpose of the Feast of Trumpets and pass on to our children and emphasize to one another the need to have ears that are ready to hear and listen and proclaim what we've heard to one another. Pray and watch, O Yashar'al. My brothers and sisters, to some of you, it's a rant. To others, these words may strengthen you, may encourage you. Know how to identify the Almighty Yahuah's set-apart proclamations, and this will prove to be something that strengthens you in this walk. And as end times, as civil unrest, as chaos, as diseases, as all things that are prophesied begin to get intense, we will discover that our ears are trained to hear. Hey, that sounds like the voice of the Almighty Father. Hey, I believe the Spirit of Yahushua is working through you, saying something to me, to us, to a set-apart nation. We must learn how to identify that the Almighty Father is working through us, in us, one towards another. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. Have you become aware of set-apart things to make known? Have you made known your skill sets, your talents? Have you made known your resources, your abilities? Have you made known what you received from another that is in set-apartness, that strengthens you, or that brought favor to your soul? Speak out, O Yashar'al, and let us make known the presence of the Almighty Father. For such a time as this, there are plans going forward, and they require us to make known the tasks we have been given from the Almighty Father. My brothers and sisters, the slide you see before you, if you've tuned in for the first time, highlights things that I believe White Rose family will present. If this is your first time seeing it, take a moment and go through it. For the sake of time and because I repeat it often, I would say this. Just imagine all the questions that you have. There's a place to go to seek answers, many answers. Just imagine that there are leaders that have been vetted, proven to be chosen by the Almighty Father, who demonstrate how to lead and how to serve. Just imagine there are individuals that can identify the direction we must go. Look at these bullets, my brothers and sisters, and pause and think about your expectations. Somewhere within our being, we will discover that there are plans. Plans for the coming together of the 144,000. Plans for the great multitude rising. Plans for the final exodus. Plans for the gathering of the set-apart ones to the places where we are tasked to go. Plans for strengthening a set-apart nation. And with every plan, in any plan, my brothers and sisters, there are costs. Count the costs, O Yashar'al. It's a cost that may require us to sacrifice our time, our abilities, our skills, our experiences. A time that may cost us what little or what great wealth that we receive from a financial perspective. What are we doing with it? I invite you to subscribe and share, Yashar'al. If you're receiving anything that remotely strengthens your spirit, your mind, gives you things to ponder on. Subscribe and share. I ask for your support by getting involved. Consider using the resources, supplies, skills, and or money to help build a set-apart awakening nation, to move beyond entertainment and work towards the fitting together of a great set-apart nation. I ask you to examine all things, ask questions, O Yashar'al, discern, act. I have set up a Cash App, White Rose family, if you care to contribute financially. For more information, email me at Symmanayah@Watchman.net. Remember, my brothers and sisters, end times are here. Let us be mindful of Matthew 25:14-30, which speaks of a time that demonstrates to us the importance of using what we've received from the Almighty Father or losing it. Yashar'al, I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your pursuit of set-apartness. My heart stirs daily. The time will come when we will want to receive all instructions that make us strong. The time will come when we will realize, instead of trying to protect our egos, our self-esteem, instead of trying to guard our way of life, the time will come when we pursue with intensity the way of life that is led by the Spirit of the Almighty Father. Let us be honest with each other. Let us make known what is stirring within. Let us yield to the instructions that strengthen us, for it will prove to be needed. End times are about to get fierce, O Yashar'al. On that note, I salute your patience, your tolerance. I look forward to one day moving beyond our current condition and witnessing us coming together in the power and might of set-apartness as we are led by the Spirit of the Almighty Father Yahuah. My name is Symmanayah. You have been listening to White Rose Family, a message that I believe will reach the ears of all those it's intended. Shalom, my brothers and sisters. Shalom.